Once again, the FCC is at the center of a major controversy. Stephen Colbert claimed this week that CBS lawyers told him not to air an interview with the Texas Senate candidate over equal time rules. The host insists it's because the networks are scared of this administration. CBS denies this. The FCC chairman confirmed that he is investigating networks, including ABC over The View. But what about talk radio? For example, Sean Hannity's radio show falls under the FCC's umbrella. And since the new year, which of course is a campaign year, he has had zero Democrats on. But for some reason, Brendan Carr doesn't think that's a problem.
The equal time rule applies to all broadcasters. The particular equal time notice that we put out walked through a number of precedents that applied in the TV context where we had seen that it appeared that programmers were either overreading or misreading some of the case law on the equal time rule as it applies to broadcast TV. We haven't seen the same issues on the radio side, but the equal time rule is going to apply to broadcast across the board.
Well, if he hasn't seen it on the radio side, maybe it's because he's not looking. Because talk radio is actually pretty dominated by conservative outlets and radio broadcasters. So where's the outrage?
Absolutely. This should scare everybody when the Trump administration is deciding who can be listened to or who will not be listened to, about whether or not they anger the president of the United States or are somehow anti-conservative. This is silencing dissent. This is antithetical to the First Amendment. I mean, you see what happened with Stephen Colbert.
We
saw this happen with Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, the FCC is abusing and is using their authority and their power in a way that I think is detrimental and harmful to our ideals about democracy.
Okay, no one is being silenced, and I'm so tired of these late night hosts who act like they're martyrs and they think they're so brave for saying, I'm standing up to Donald Trump. No, they're unsuccessful, overpaid whiners. And this is the best thing that you can do to ingratiate yourself to Hollywood and the media is to go after Donald Trump. There is actually no
this was Democrat on Democrat violence. This had nothing to do with the primary.
Jimmy Kimmel has a show. The issue that happened this week is that James Tallarico went on.
Well, you actually did a Freudian slip. Jimmy Kimmel was silenced when the FCC.
We're talking about Disney fired him.
We're talking about
Disney fired him briefly.
Why did Disney fire? You gotta take a couple more steps.
They not fired.
They paused him. They paused him.
Jasmine Crockett was the one that was denied equal time. This had nothing to do with Republican Democrat. Jasmine Crockett's running against him. They would not have her on. Okay, they wanted this particular candidate to win. They've made the decision they wanted him to win, and they wanted to put him on late night show. This had nothing to do with the FCC. Brandon Carr said he had nothing to do with this decision.
Well, just a second, but I mean, I feel like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here, because the idea that the equal time rule even applies to Stephen Colbert is a novel thing. That's what Brendan Carr was announcing, essentially, is that he has decided that despite the last 20 plus years, this not actually applying to late night hosts, he wants to make it apply to them. And he wants to make it apply to daytime TV like The View. So that's the thing that's changing. And that's what Colbert says is the threat. The threat is not this one incident. The threat is he's decided he's going to change the rules to try to target a certain segment of television.
I think that's Colbert trying to get ratings now, because that didn't happen in this case. In this case, it was the network decided we can't have him on without having Jasmine Crockett on.
But do you understand why the network would have said that? Well, they said that because Brendan Carr issued that statement about a week before this incident and essentially gave a warning sign to these networks that if you don't, if you don't apply equal time, I'm going to go after you.
Do you think it was fair to have one candidate on versus the other in the Democrat primary?
I think that historically, that concept of equal time would not have even applied.
Do you think
so? What is the
platform?
purpose of putting that into place? I think that's the question for the administration. And then the next question is also, okay, if you're going to do it for TV, why won't you do it for Sean Hannity?
That's right.
He doesn't have a single Democrat on.
Everything is, look, if you want to stack the deck for your team, okay, just don't pretend like you're not.
But
that's my whole thing is like,
this was an entertainment.
No, but so do you think they should have had the Republican candidates on?
That wasn't what this was about. That wasn't what this was about.
But they have a primary too.
Yeah, but
the Republicans are having a
they're not running against each other.
The primary, when this whole thing came up, the origin story was on the equal time was not just Democrat against Democrat. It was that late night shows were not having Republicans on. When they ran the data, it was saying that late night shows were having primarily Democrats on. And so equal time was for Democrat and Republican, not Democrat against
You mean
Democrat.
what you're talking about? You're saying that Republicans wanted the equal
Equal time so that they could have fair
Okay.
time
So,
space on at
I
late
mean,
night.
I
So
think it
why
is-
not have the Republicans folks on too?
So let me
No
play
one cares.
Jasmine.
No one cares.
Let me play Jasmine Crockett.
So why
because
do you need equal time?
She is a
Jasmine
player.
Crockett's the one
Yes, maybe
complaining.
No,
Then-
FCC
She's
is the
a-
one saying
She's
equal
a
time.
player in this
That's
as well. Let me play what Jasmine Crockett has said about this whole situation.
I did not get a request from the Colbert Show to go on. As you know, I've been on Colbert multiple times. And so there were a number of options that could be put on the table. And frankly, the Late Show decided that this was the option. And I think that it was a good strategy. I mean, look at what happened when they tried to censor CCOT. We found out that you could get a lot more views. So I think it probably gave my opponent the boost he was looking for.
Do you think that there's some truth to that?
Look, I think the problem that we have and that we have to articulate is we have an administration that is determining who gets a voice, who gets an opportunity to speak, and who does not. When the administration is wielding and misusing its power in this way, all of us really need to speak up and speak out against it and about it. I think Jasmine is an amazing candidate. I think James is an amazing candidate. I think we are going to have a Democratic U.S. senator. But the reality is, when we look at Sean Hannity, when we look at these other people who also have platforms that are under the FCC umbrella, they are not getting critiqued. They are not being told they need equal time. They are not ensuring that there is a diverse number of opinions. This is really targeted at really institutions or organizations that are seen as more progressive or more democratic leaning.
How do they,
That's
how
what's
do
wrong.
they just, how
That's
does the
what's wrong.
administration justify that? How do they justify, I think the phrase that, I can't remember exactly the phrase that Brendan Carr used, but he was talking about sort of politically minded shows are the ones that he is focused on. Why is it only the television shows that are critical of the president, that Trump has called out by name? Why isn't the FCC dealing with its entire mandate, which includes radio as well?
In my experience speaking with, Buck Sexton or some of these notable radio hosts, they complain, we would love to have Democrats on. Anytime we try and get a Democrat on, they don't want to
but
come.
that's not how equal time works.
No.
You don't get a
So
pass.
they would be happy to.
You don't
to
necessarily-
make that
So if
happen.
don't
Democrats
necessarily-
refuse to go on, they should shut down the radio shows?
Well, listen, I asked Brendan Carr.
Right.
But I mean,
Okay.
no, but I'm saying,
They started this. This is the
I think
problem.
that the lack of why then, why would he investigate the View? I mean, Republicans go on the View.
No, okay, what I'm
There,
not saying
there
about
are,
this
there,
is
they go.
Can I
more
say
Liz Cheney,
something?
more
Liz Cheney.
Republicans go on the
Let me
View
tell you
than
what
Buck
happened here.
Sexton's show. So
there were 120 plus liberals on the View. There were 2 Republican guests. One of them was Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she was only invited on because she criticized Trump.
The
This
other was
is
Liz
a
Cheney.
hold on, this
And
is
you're
a
making my
campaign thing, right? Okay. You just mentioned a conservative show, and you're saying that if liberals don't want to come on or whatever, then that makes them exempt from
No,
the
I think they would
FCC's
love to have
jurisdiction,
Democrats on.
and it doesn't.
Doesn't.
It doesn't.
What?
You know,
So should Democrats be
Brendan
forced to
Carr-
go on their
Brendan
show?
Carr never asked the question, well, did you invite, because it doesn't even need to be on the Colbert Show. It could be anywhere else on
Anywhere,
CBS.
yes.
well,
Did
broadcast
CBS invite the other candidate to come on? He never asked that question. He simply suggested that they would be subject to enforcement. And they're doing the same with The View, which is part of a broader network that, again, has Republicans on
This
it.
is what
are
happened.
exempt from that.
This is
equal
what
time.
happened here.
Yes, but
This is what happened here.
okay. Let me just clarify this because this is important. What you said is correct, but this is why we're talking about this right now. Because previously, shows like The View and these late night shows were underneath the umbrella of bona fide news programs. They were exempt, right? And now they're not because Brendan Carr doesn't want them to be. And so that's why we're talking about this.
Yes.
That's why it matters.
This is what happened. And it happened with the tariffs, and it happened with other policies that this Trump administration does. They take a big swing, and they don't look at what part of the field they're trying to hit the ball to. They don't know if there's somebody out in the outfield that can catch it. They don't know how far it is to get a home run. And then when they do it and something happens, I don't think they ever anticipated that this would be a Democrat against a Democratic thing. But now you actually have to answer some real questions that they haven't thought out of. But the underlying intention was to actually put some intimidation, to put a silencing effect,
And who
to
has been
try
silenced?
what we're saying is it's not about who has been silenced. It's about a fair application of the law. And that is something this administration isn't too familiar with. They do things that think are going to have one consequence. And when the fact pattern plays out differently, they get caught on their heels because they don't know what to do. So the answer is fine. If they didn't air the Tallarico interview, that's okay. They didn't air it. Maybe there are beneficial consequences to Tallarico. The question still goes by. The fair application of this law is, what about the Republican radio
Then
host?
file a lawsuit.
All right.
Okay.
Go to court.
Again, I think
mean,
I
if
would
it's
love
against
to
the
see
law, file a
Democrats
lawsuit.
dragged on to Republican conservative talk shows.
All
I
right,
think it'd be great.
next for us, why does Trump's cabinet like to show off their bench presses and ice baths? We'll discuss. Plus, Meghan McCain says that Republicans need to stop telling Americans to have more babies. We'll tell you why.